Batman Hush is a brand new DC animated movie based off of the graphic novel of the same name, and for a lot of comic book fans, this movie's been quite a long time coming, because Hush, for a lot of people, is one of the best Batman storylines out there, and it's definitely one of my favourites. So the fact that they actually decided to finally make an animated movie based off of this story was kind of everything I have always wanted in a Batman animated movie. But does it live up to the hype? Sort of, but not really. First of all, whatever this movie does well, it does it really well. For example, one of the best aspects of the original storyline is the fact that it was a very good excuse to get most of Batman's most notable villains all in one place at the same time. And this movie does a good job of balancing each villain and how much screen time they get. You get people like Bane, and the Riddler, and Scarecrow, and the Joker, and the way that it weaves from one to the other is really interesting. Another thing this movie does really well is delving into Batman as a character and also his relationship with Selina Kyle / Catwoman. Because in a lot of previous stories that I've seen, their romance is hinted at, but never usually just blatantly explored. Whereas here, it is explored to the point where they are actually an item, and you watch how their different morals and codes kind of contradict one another, as well as also working with each other as well. For example, Batman's moral code is that he does never kill anyone, whereas Catwoman kind of doesn't give a shit and just is there to get the job done and leaves. So there are times where you can see them working well together because of what morals they do share, and there are other times where their key morals do kind of contradict each other, and it was a really interesting thing to explore in a movie like this. I also think this movie does a pretty decent job of translating what was in the book to the movie. It does miss out some pretty vital moments that really delve into Batman as a character and his past, and I thought those would have been the most notable things to keep in the film. But in fact, they're the things that are missing, and the movie just kind of gets on with the main plot and just keeps going with that. All the side things that really work as good character building for certain characters in the graphic novel, it throws that out the window and just goes straight for the main plot and focuses on that. Which, for the sake of the film, I think kind of works, because they're going for a very tight 83 minutes runtime. So to keep it that length, you kind of have to cut out filler such as that. But that being said, if they'd kept those things in, then it would have made these characters just that bit more interesting. Even though they're already interesting as they are, it just would have helped push certain things along in terms of the characters and the story. The voice acting is pretty decent as well. Besides from Batman and Catwoman, everyone else is pretty serviceable at best, but it doesn't mean they're not doing a bad job. They're doing the best job they can do, and for what it is, they're doing a pretty good job. The animation is quite nice to look at, but I've noticed it's kind of a recurring thing with these DC animated movies, is that the one thing you take away from them 9 out of 10 times usually isn't the animation. Because this movie kind of has a similar problem to what I had with Batman the Killing Joke. When that movie is straight up adapting the source material, it's really good. But unfortunately, the animation doesn't really do much to stand out on its own. It's just very basic in that sense. Like, I'm not saying the animation's bad, it gets the job done, and that's about it. Unlike a movie such as Batman Ninja, which was visually stunning from start to finish, and the weakest aspect was probably the story, so it's kind of like Batman Hush, but the other way round. Whereas these other Batman and DC animated movies just kind of have serviceable animation and usually a decent plot. In the end, I do think the graphic novel is slightly more superior than this film, and I definitely think the graphic novel handles the intrigue of the character of Hush a lot better than the movie does. There are certain things that the movie does in regards to Hush that I did like more than the book, but on the whole, I do think the book handles that character and everything else slightly better, which is why I'm going to give Batman Hush a 6.5. Kind of leaning to a 7, but it's just going to stay at a 6.5 for the moment. For everything that does work in this movie, it works pretty well. But unfortunately, when you're comparing it to such a very strong source material that works leaps and bounds better than this movie does, and the fact that they cut very important things out to make this movie work, just kind of makes you want to read the graphic novel instead rather than watch this film. But if you're a die-hard Batman fan, I can see how you would get some enjoyment out of this. Because though I do have issues with it, I would still say this is an enjoyable movie to watch. So guys, that was my review of Batman Hush. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.